The story begins in a sandy desert, where Prince Arnold is getting ready to take down a massive minotaur all by himself. But right at that moment, his butler named Sebas stops him to deliver some serious news, informing him that General Dominic is dead. Arnold immediately asks whether the general was assassinated or not, but Sebas admits that the details surrounding his death are still unclear. Sebas also says he doubts anyone will even bother requesting an investigation to find out who might be responsible for the killing. Setting that topic aside for a moment, Sebas notices that Arnold is holding his adventurer mask in his hand, and he asks Arnold why he's carrying it around, since there's not even a single other person nearby to see him. Arnold explains that it's simply a precaution, because he knows exactly what kind of chaos would happen if people ever discovered that Prince Arnold has secretly been pretending to be an adventurer this whole time. Sebas warns Arnold that he really should stop playing adventurer, since it's an extremely risky hobby for someone in his position. But Arnold simply reminds Sebas that he's already widely known throughout the kingdom as the insipid prince, mostly because his younger brother ended up absorbing all of the family's natural talent. Since that's already how people see him, Arnold says he might as well just do whatever he wants. With that said, he puts his mask on and introduces himself under his secret alias called Silver, the SS rank adventurer, using his ancient magic. He takes down the giant minotaur in only a matter of seconds. Silver then makes his way back to the imperial capital and heads straight over to the Adventurer Guild. Everyone inside is left completely shocked the moment he drops a minotaur horn onto the counter, proving that he managed to defeat the creature entirely on his own. The receptionist happily hands Silver his bounty reward and tells him how glad she is that one of the 5 SS rank adventurers in the entire kingdom is stationed at this particular branch. Silver simply asks the receptionist to give him top priority whenever a difficult task comes up next, and then he drops some coins on the counter so she and the other adventurers nearby can go grab themselves a quick drink. After that, Arnold takes off his mask, opens up a magic portal, and heads straight back to the royal palace, where he resumes his everyday duties as the so-called insipid prince. Arnold is then shown in a meeting with his twin brother Leonard, where the two of them discuss how General Dominic managed to die so suddenly. They're both fairly certain that someone assassinated him, but neither of them has any idea who could be responsible, and they both agree that launching a full investigation right now would probably cause more harm than good. Given the dangerous position they've now been put in, Arnold tells Leonard that he's going to need to actively fight for the throne, or else the two of them could end up dead. Leonard is a bit hesitant about the idea at first, but after Arnold reminds him of all the disaster that could potentially fall upon them if they don't act, Leonard eventually agrees to go along with the plan. Arnold tells Leonard that the very first thing he needs to do is build up his own personal force so that no enemy will ever be able to threaten them again. In the meantime, Arnold says that he himself will focus on forming political alliances, even though he admits they probably won't be all that strong, since most of the powerful noble families are already locked into one of the 3 existing factions. Hearing just how calm and collected Arnold manages to stay while dealing with such serious problems makes Leonard start to think that Arnold might actually be more suited for the role of king than he himself is. But Arnold insists that he's honestly not that kind of person at all. He simply wants to live out the rest of his life in peace and leisure alongside his future beautiful wife. Besides all that, he explains that he genuinely needs Leonard to become emperor for reasons of his own. Later on, Arnold has a private conversation with Sebas, who asks him why he doesn't just reveal to everyone that he's actually one of the 5 SS rank adventurers. Arnold reminds him that using ancient magic has been considered a serious taboo among the nobility for many years, so revealing that fact would only bring about unnecessary conflict that he simply doesn't have the time to deal with right now. If Arnold were to be exposed as Silver, then people would also learn that he's been secretly using ancient magic this entire time, which would end up being very bad for Leonard's chances of becoming emperor. Setting that concern aside, Arnold then asks Sebas whether there happen to be any duke families out there who aren't currently interested in competing for the throne. Sebas answers that there's only one such family, the Kleinert family. Arnold assumes there has to be some kind of reason why they've been staying so silent during a time like this. Sebas explains that it's because their territory has recently been exposed to a dangerous monster, so the family has been far too busy dealing with that crisis to worry about politics. dukes. Arnold considers the idea of having Silver help the Kleinert family escape from that dangerous predicament in order to put them in his debt, but Sebas doesn't recommend the plan since it could very easily end up revealing the secret connection between Arnold and Silver. But Arnold isn't worried in the slightest, because he knows that all he really needs to do is be careful. With that decided, he suits up in his adventurer outfit and prepares to go pay a visit to the Duke of the Kleinert family. But before he leaves, Sebas warns Arnold about the Duke's daughter and her unparalleled beauty, urging him not to let himself get blinded by her looks. Arnold simply tells Sebas to relax, since he's not the type of person who gets easily carried away by that sort of thing. He then puts on his mask and opens a portal that takes him directly to the Kleinert family mansion. However, one of the Duke's sons takes a single look at him and refuses to believe that he's the real Silver. Silver attempts to pull out his guild card as proof, but the son tells him not to even bother and demands that he leave the premises immediately. Silver prepares to leave, but right before he does, he catches a brief glimpse of the Duke's daughter and privately admits to himself that she really is just as beautiful as everyone says. Arnold returns back home, and Sebas is surprised at just how quickly he managed to come back already. Arnold explains exactly what happened during his visit, and says that he's planning to return to the mansion once again, but this time as Prince Arnold instead of as Silver, so that the Duke will be forced to actually listen to him. 5 days later, Arnold arrives at the Kleinert mansion and has a private one-on-one conversation with the Duke. After exchanging the usual formal greetings, Arnold gets straight down to business and tells the Duke that he's fully aware of the monster problem currently plaguing his territory. Arnold explains that this is exactly the reason why he had Leonard send out the legendary SS rank adventurer Silver to come take care of the situation. And yet, despite all of that, Arnold tells the Duke that he still refused to repay that debt by siding with them in their race for the throne. The Duke insists that he had absolutely no idea Silver had ever visited his mansion earlier, and he begs Arnold for forgiveness while promising to personally investigate the matter. The moment the Duke leaves the room, a smug grin spreads across Arnold's face as he realizes that everything went exactly according to plan. The fact that someone from this household chased Silver away will only end up putting the Duke even further in their debt. Arnold acknowledges that it was a dirty and manipulative move, but he honestly doesn't mind dirtying his own reputation a little, if it means giving Leonard's chances a meaningful boost. About 10 minutes later, the Duke comes back into the room, this time bringing his son along with him, and apologizes profusely to Arnold, explaining that it was actually his own son who had sent Silver away earlier. The son tries to argue that he had absolutely no way of knowing that the real Silver would ever show up at their mansion, but the Duke simply tells him to be quiet and stop making the situation any worse than it already is. The Duke then tries offering one of his sons to Arnold as a formal apology gift, but Arnold flatly refuses, saying he has no need for him or his useless son. The only thing that would truly count as a worthy apology gift, he says, is something that holds real value to both himself and his brother Leonard. At that point, the Duke's daughter, Finn, suddenly steps forward out of nowhere and offers herself up as the apology gift instead. She explains that she was present when Silver was sent away, so she considers herself just as guilty as everyone else involved. Seeing just how far the family is willing to go to make amends, Sebas suggests that Arnold simply overlook the whole incident this one time. Arnold is initially reluctant to just let it go, since doing so would allow their family's disrespect to go unpunished. However, after Sebas reminds him that harshly punishing them isn't something Leonard would ever normally choose to do, and that going against that kind of reputation could seriously damage his standing, Arnold changes his mind. Instead, he asks the Duke to send someone out right away to track down Silver, saying that he'll speak with him about the matter directly. A couple of hours later, Arnold and Finn somehow find themselves standing face to face with Silver, who lets them know exactly how angry he still is about being sent away from the mansion 5 days earlier. Though Silver admits that he's still willing to take on the extermination quest, he first asks Arnold whether he's managed to secure a deal that brings the Duke firmly onto their side. Arnold admits that he hasn't struck the deal just yet, but assures him it will happen very soon. Hearing this makes Silver call Arnold the insipid prince once again, mocking just how incompetent he seems compared to his own younger brother. Arnold proceeds to reassure Silver once more that everything will definitely get sorted out, and he even goes so far as to bow his head to Silver, which catches Finn completely off guard, since it's practically unheard of for a member of the royal family to bow to someone who isn't even a noble. Seeing how easily Arnold is willing to swallow his pride, Silver finally agrees to take on the monster extermination quest. However, he reminds Finn that they're all counting on the Duke to keep his end of the bargain, since he wouldn't be taking on the quest otherwise. After the meeting comes to an end, Sebas praises Arnold for using illusion magic to create a convincing false image of Silver, calling the whole plan absolute genius. Arnold is simply relieved that everything worked out, since Finn is now completely convinced that what she witnessed was the real thing. Later, on the ride back home, Finn thanks Arnold for bowing his head to Silver on her behalf. She admits that she originally expected him to be someone full of pride and arrogance, but it seems she was mistaken about him. Arnold tries to play the whole thing off, insisting that he only did it for his own personal benefit, but when he looks over at Finn and sees the bright and cute smile on her face, it suddenly reminds him of a distant memory from his childhood, back when he was watching a meteor shower together with his mother. Later that day, Arnold and Sebas are standing together on the mountain, and Sebas asks Arnold whether seeing Finn's smile just now managed to rekindle that same sense of joy he once felt as a child. Arnold simply tells Sebas to be quiet about it. After that exchange, Arnold suddenly starts to notice that the desert around them is absolutely littered with slimes. Sebas explains that another adventure party was recently deployed to handle this exact area, and they've clearly been quite busy dealing with the infestation. Arnold can already tell that there are this many slimes because the mother slime keeps continuously birthing more of them, meaning the swarm is never going to stop unless someone manages to take out the source itself. Arnold immediately transforms into Silver and goes to meet up with the adventurer party, where he's introduced to their leader, a man named Abel. The party members instantly recognize Silver as one of the famously rare SS rank adventurers. Silver asks them whether they've officially been assigned to handle this particular situation, and one of the party members speaks up, explaining that they simply haven't been able to land a fatal blow against the mother slime, since they clearly lack the firepower needed to finish the job, which is why they've been retreating instead. Silver offers to take on the quest himself, but he can clearly sense that Abel's party is hesitant, since they'd rather handle the situation entirely on their own. However, Silver warns them that if they insist on going down that particular road, he'll simply report the matter to the Adventurers Guild and have it listed as an emergency request, which would allow him to accept the quest anyway, meaning there's really no point in them trying to deny him access to it. Abel sees the logic in Silver's argument and agrees to let him handle the mother slime personally. Silver commends Abel for not letting greed get the better of his judgment, and then walks off to go take care of the slime infestation himself. Silver begins casting his powerful ancient magic and manages to wipe out every single slime, including the mother slime itself, in one single destructive blow. Abel and the rest of his party are absolutely stunned to witness ancient magic being used in person for the very first time. But before any of them can even think to ask him about it, Silver simply opens up a portal and leaves the area entirely. Silver eventually arrives back home and removes his mask, completely unaware that Finn has been standing there the entire time in shock, meaning that his once secret identity isn't a secret anymore. Arnold turns to Finn and asks what she is even doing here. Finn explains that she made some snacks herself and simply wanted to bring them over for him to enjoy. She also tells Arnold that he does not have to worry because she has no intention of telling anyone his secret about being Silver, the famous S-rank adventurer. Arnold points out that she actually just said the secret pretty loudly just a moment ago. However, he points out that it is not really a problem because he has already placed a soundproof barrier around the room. Thanks to that barrier, nobody outside the room can hear anything they are saying, so his secret is still perfectly safe. Arnold is surprised by how casually Finn is treating the entire situation. He asks her why she is not even a little worried that he might decide to silence her by force now that she knows his biggest secret. Finn simply smiles and says she is not worried at all. She explains that she knows Arnold is not the kind of person who would ever do something like that. The thought never even crossed her mind because she completely trusts him. As she thinks about it some more, Finn realizes why Arnold has gone through so much trouble all this time. He went as far as setting up a meeting with the false image of Silver, and even referred to himself as the insipid prince, all for the sake of helping helping Prince Leonard. Realizing that only strengthens her opinion of him, it convinces her even more that Arnold is a genuinely kind and honorable person who always puts others before himself. Arnold tells Finn that this has never been an issue before, because until now, Sebas was the only person who knew that he was actually Silver. Sebas has always been extremely trustworthy and never lets secrets slip, so Arnold has never had to worry about his identity being exposed. Now that Finn knows the truth as well, Arnold seriously tells her not to tell another living soul about it. Finn agrees without any hesitation and sincerely promises that she will keep his secret no matter what happens. Later that same night, Abel and the rest of his party meet with the Duke to give a full report on the mission they recently completed. After listening carefully, the Duke praises them for the progress they have made and thanks them for all the hard work they have put into the mission. He also apologizes because he knows the task has become much more difficult and troublesome than anyone originally expected. Once he finishes speaking, the Duke orders one of his servants to bring over a small pouch filled with money. He explains that the money is not part of the bounty they were promised. Instead, it is simply an extra reward to show how grateful he is for everything they have done. Abel politely refuses to accept the pouch of money. He tells the Duke that the reward they were originally promised is already generous enough, so he cannot accept anything more than that. He also honestly admits that his party was not the one that solved the real problem in the end, so he does not believe they deserve any additional reward. Hearing Abel speak so honestly and humbly makes Arnold quietly smile to himself, as he cannot help but admire how sincere and straightforward Abel and his companions truly are. After Abel and his party leave, the Duke turns to Arnold and sincerely thanks him for everything he has done. However, Arnold immediately tells the Duke that he should be thanking Prince Leonard instead of him. He explains that Leonard was the one who wanted the Duke to meet both him and Silver in the first place, so the credit should go to Leonard, not him. Hearing that, the Duke formally declares that his household will now support Prince Leonard in his bid for the throne. Arnold accepts the Duke's decision, and the two of them seal the agreement with a firm handshake. As Arnold thinks about it, he realizes that this means Leonard has finally established himself as the fourth major force in the battle for the throne, standing alongside his two brothers and two sisters. The Duke then points out that, despite this progress, Leonard's faction still seems to be lacking manpower. Arnold agrees and explains that most of the nobles are still choosing to remain neutral while they wait to see how the succession battle develops. At the moment, what Leonard needs more than anything is a group of trustworthy nobles who can support him without betraying him later. The Duke asks Arnold if he has any ideas, but before Arnold can answer, the Duke offers a suggestion of his own. He says Arnold should just take Finn with him. Arnold is completely caught off guard by the proposal and asks why he would suggest something like that. The Duke explains that Finn has been insisting that she wants to repay the debt they owe Arnold. Arnold can tell that Finn genuinely wants to help, and since the Duke fully supports her decision as well, he eventually agrees to let her come along. Not long afterward, Arnold and Finn climb into a carriage and begin their journey back to the royal capital, while the Duke and Finn's older brother stand outside and say their goodbyes. During the trip back, Finn notices that Arnold has been unusually quiet. She asks if something is bothering him because he seems a little upset. Arnold admits that he is feeling frustrated. He explains that the struggle for the throne has caused countless deaths throughout history, and because of that, he does not want Finn to get dragged into such a dangerous conflict. Finn understands exactly what he means, but she tells him that she still chose to come because she truly wants to help him. Even knowing the risks, she has no intention of changing her mind. After returning to the royal capital, Arnold heads straight to Leonard's office to report everything that happened during his visit to the Duke's territory. He explains how the meeting went and tells Leonard that the Duke has officially decided to support their faction, mainly because of Silver's involvement. Even so, Arnold advises Leonard not to place complete trust in the Duke just yet. While the Duke has joined their side, it is still too early to know whether that loyalty will remain unshaken. Once he finishes his report, Arnold tells Leonard that one of the Duke's children has come with him. Right on cue, Finn walks into the room and politely introduces herself. Leonard introduces himself in return, and after hearing him speak, Finn smiles warmly. She tells Leonard that she is happy to finally meet him in person, because he really is the kind and gentle person Arnold always described him as. Leonard becomes curious after hearing Finn mention that Arnold often talks about him, wanting to know exactly what was said. Leonard eagerly asks her to tell him everything. Finn happily agrees, and the two of them spend some time chatting while she shares the things Arnold has said about him. After listening for a while, Leonard turns to Arnold and asks what he plans to do with Finn now that she has come to the royal capital. Arnold says he intends to have Finn help them as a negotiator whenever they need to deal with other nobles. He also plans to have her stay at the royal mansion for the time being. Simply having a member of the Kleinart family living there should be enough to show everyone that Leonard now has the full support of the Kleinart household. Once that topic is settled, Arnold asks Leonard whether there are any other nobles who might be willing to become their allies. Leonard says it is difficult to say because nearly all the influential families have already joined one of the three strongest factions. Finn looks confused because she has no idea who these three rival factions are. Seeing that, Arnold and Leonard take the time to explain the current political situation to her. They go over the members of the three most powerful noble families in the kingdom and explain how each one is competing for the throne. Arnold explains that those three great families have been steadily expanding their influence in order to strengthen their claims. Each faction has built its support around a different pillar of the kingdom. One is backed mainly by powerful civil officials, another has the support of the military, while the third has gathered the kingdom's strongest magicians under its banner. Leonard adds that many nobles are now trying to win favor with one of those three factions because they believe that is the safest path to securing their own future. Leonard goes on to explain that all of this started about 3 years ago after their older brother, Wilhelm, was killed in battle. If Wilhelm had survived, there never would have been a struggle over who would inherit the throne. After hearing that, Arnold calmly looks at Leonard and confidently tells him that he will personally make sure Leonard becomes the next king. Just then, Marie knocks on the door before entering the room with an urgent letter for Leonard. After reading it, Leonard learns that Duke Zeifrit has officially joined Princess Xandra's faction, while Duke Paulman has pledged his support to Prince Gordon. Hearing that news, Arnold and Leonard immediately realize just how far behind they are. Those two dukes control enormous merchant organizations and possess tremendous financial influence. Competing against that level of wealth will not be easy, and they know they cannot match those resources with money alone. After thinking about it for a moment, Arnold stands up and says he is going to take a short break. He explains that his back is still aching from the long carriage ride back to the royal capital, and he wants to rest for a while before worrying about anything else. 2 days later, Finn asks Arnold if he would show her around the royal capital. Arnold immediately refuses because he knows that walking around together would attract far too much attention. Finn quickly assures him that nobody will recognize her because she plans to wear a pair of glasses as a disguise. Arnold is not convinced at all and tells her that wearing glasses alone is nowhere near enough to hide her identity. He says she will need to put much more effort into disguising herself if she wants to avoid being recognized. In response, Finn pulls out a blue hooded jacket and puts it on. Seeing the hood cover most of her appearance, Arnold admits that it is actually a much better disguise than he expected, realizing it should be enough to keep her from drawing attention. He finally gives in and agrees to take her on a tour of the royal capital. The two head into town soon afterward, and Arnold begins showing Finn around the royal capital. As they walk through the busy streets, Finn is surprised by how much Arnold knows about the city. When she calls him by name, Arnold quickly tells her to call him Arn instead, since using his real name could attract attention. Finn happily agrees because she likes the nickname. After walking around for a while, they stop for lunch. Finn takes a bite of her cheese sandwich and says it is one of the most delicious things she has ever eaten. Arnold explains that it is made with goat cheese, which gives it its rich flavor. Afterward, they notice a group of children playing nearby. Watching them reminds Arnold of his childhood. He tells Finn he used to sneak out of the palace just to play with other children and enjoy a normal life. Finn admits she envies him because she had very few friends growing up. Arnold tells her making friends should be easier from now on, but she should only trust people who have earned it. Their peaceful moment is interrupted when a child accidentally throws a water balloon that soaks Finn's top. Arnold immediately takes her to a nearby clothing shop so she can change. Since she cannot decide what to wear, Arnold picks out a dress for her. When she comes out wearing it, Arnold blushes a little, and even the shop owner says it suits her perfectly. When it is time to pay, Arnold says Sebas will come by later to settle the bill. The shop owner laughs and tells them to enjoy the rest of their day gate. Both Arnold and Finn quickly deny it, but the shop owner simply smiles. The two continue exploring the city until sunset. As they prepare to leave, one last street stall catches Finn's attention. While she is distracted, Duke Holsworth's eldest son, Guido, approaches Arnold and mocks him by calling him the insipid prince. He even strikes Arnold's injured leg with his cane to humiliate him. Finn immediately rushes over and demands to know why Guido is treating Arnold that way. When she lowers her hood, Guido instantly realizes who she is. Finn quickly lies, claiming Arnold is actually Prince Leonard disguised as his brother to see how people treat him. Arnold immediately plays along by fixing his hairstyle and perfectly acting like Leonard. Believing he has offended Prince Leonard, Guido quickly leaves with his group. Once they are alone again, Arnold explains that while Finn was trying to help, Guido will likely hold a grudge against her, and now believes Leonard sometimes disguises himself as Arnold, which could make his secret activities more difficult. Even so, Arnold thanks Finn because he knows she acted for his sake. A few days later, Arnold and Leonard receive unexpected summons to attend a formal meeting with their father, the king. Since this has never happened before, Arnold is certain the king's announcement will be anything but good news. The meeting begins with every imperial prince and princess gathered inside the palace, including Arnold and Leonard. Since everyone was called on such short notice, the atmosphere is tense as they wait for the emperor to explain why they have been summoned. After thanking everyone for coming so quickly, the emperor is about to begin when Gordon impatiently speaks up. He asks why they were called and openly says that if this meeting is about going to war, then he would gladly accept the opportunity. Gordon clearly looks excited at the thought of fighting on the battlefield. Hearing that, Xandra immediately calls Gordon a meathead. She points out that he always seems to think about war before anything else. Gordon doesn't deny it at all. Instead, he proudly says there is great honor in fighting for the Empire and even dying on the battlefield if that's what it takes. To him, there is no greater way to prove his loyalty. Before the argument can continue any further, the Emperor finally speaks. He announces that he has decided to bring back an old imperial tradition known as the Knights' Festival of the Hunt. Not only is the festival returning, but all of the imperial princes and princesses will compete against one another during the event. The announcement immediately surprises everyone in the room. Gordon and Xandra exchange confused looks because neither of them fully understands what the Emperor is talking about. However, Eric recognizes the name right away. He remembers reading about the festival and realizes the Emperor is referring to the ancient competition where the Imperial Guards hunt powerful monsters. The winner is determined by who captures or defeats the largest and rarest monster during the event. The Imperial Chancellor, Franz, confirms Eric's explanation. He tells everyone that the Knights' Festival of the Hunt was once one of the Empire's greatest traditions. However, for various reasons, it slowly faded away over the years and eventually stopped being held altogether. Now, the Emperor has decided that the time has come to revive the festival and make it an official event once again. Franz also reassures everyone that there won't be any problems with the Adventurers Guild. Since many of the strongest monsters normally fall under the guild's authority, some of the princes were likely wondering whether there would be any conflict. Franz explains that those concerns have already been handled because the Adventurers Guild has officially agreed to support the event, allowing the competition to proceed without any issues. After hearing all of that, Gordon immediately becomes interested. A competition involving hunting powerful monsters sounds perfect to him. Without wasting any time, he asks the Emperor what the winner of the festival will receive. Gordon immediately suggests that the winner should receive the title of Crown Prince. However, the Emperor says that reward is far too valuable. Instead, he announces that the winner will be given the title of Ambassador Extraordinary. Everyone is shocked by the announcement because they all know just how valuable and respected that title is. After the meeting, Leonard tells Arnold that he would be the perfect person for the Ambassador Extraordinary position. However, Arnold doesn't think he's capable of building and maintaining good relationships with other nations, so he says Leonard would actually be the better choice. Leonard knows Arnold is right, but the thought of having to compete against his own family still doesn't feel right to him. Even so, Leonard understands that winning this competition is extremely important for his future plans, so he decides to take part. However, he also says he'll need Arnold and Finn's help if he wants to have a chance at winning. After returning home, Arnold explains the whole situation to Sebas and Finn. Finn says this is a great opportunity for Leonard, and Arnold agrees. abilities. However, he also points out that it could become a huge problem for them. If someone like Xandra or Eric wins the title, they'll gain a massive advantage and could easily push Leonard out of the race for the throne. Arnold and Sebas spend some time trying to think of a solution. While they're discussing different ideas, Finn suddenly says she has one of her own. She tells Arnold that all he has to do is win first place in the competition himself. However, Arnold and Sebas immediately tell her that's a terrible idea. Arnold still has to keep pretending that he's weak and incapable. If he suddenly starts showing his real abilities, everyone will become suspicious because it would seem completely out of character. Arnold admits that her idea has the highest chance of success, but he reminds her that it would also reveal their biggest trump card. Once that secret is exposed, Leonard would lose the advantage they've been protecting, making it much harder for him to inherit the throne. Sebas then starts thinking about what the other princes and princesses might do before the competition begins. He says they could lure rare monsters into the hunting area ahead of time to increase their chances of winning. Hearing that, Arnold realizes they could do something similar by driving monsters toward the eastern region while disguised as Silver. However, Finn immediately tells him that's a terrible idea. Arnold quickly agrees because he knows it would only bring disaster to the innocent people living in the eastern region. Arnold then says he admires the fact that Finn always chooses to do the right thing, even when doing the wrong thing would benefit her. However, Finn completely misunderstands what he means and thinks Arnold is confessing his love for her. Overjoyed by what she believes she heard, she happily rushes off to bring him another cup of tea. After Finn leaves the room, Sebas tells Arnold that the Adventurers Guild has been trying to contact Silver for quite some time. The next day, Arnold changes into his silver disguise and heads to the guild. As soon as he arrives, the receptionist tells him about an A-rank bounty that has been placed on a mutant Cerberus. Several other A-rank adventurer parties have already been defeated, so the guild is counting on Silver because he's the only S-rank adventurer available. Silver immediately heads out to face the mutant Cerberus. Wanting to end the fight quickly, he fires a powerful energy blast at the monster. However, the Cerberus is much tougher than he expected and survives the attack. Realizing he can't hold back, Silver jumps high into the air and activates his energy ascension skill, defeating the monster in a single strike. After the battle, Silver walks over to collect the monster's core. Just then, Elna, the commanding officer of the 3rd Regiment, arrives on horseback and asks if he was the one who defeated the mutant Cerberus. Silver confirms that he was, then sarcastically asks if she's too blind to tell. That comment clearly offends Elna. Trying to get back at him, Elna starts looking for any excuse to accuse Silver of disrespecting her noble family. However, Silver turns the situation around and reminds her that she's actually the one disrespecting the Adventurers Guild. He points out that the only reason she came all the way there was because she planned to defeat the Cerberus herself if the guild hadn't already taken care of it. Realizing Silver has a point, Elna's vice commander quickly advises her to back down. He explains that if the guild officially accepted the request first, then they would be the ones in the wrong for interfering. He also reminds Elna that they need to return to the capital as soon as possible. Before leaving, it's obvious that Elna has developed a personal grudge against Silver. After she rides away, Silver admits that insulting her actually felt pretty satisfying. Even so, he realizes it probably wasn't the smartest decision to make an enemy out of someone like her. A few days later, Arnold and Sebas wait for the new person the king is sending to strengthen their forces. Arnold quietly hopes it isn't Elna. However, Sebas reminds him that Elna is one of the kingdom's most talented and promising knights, so they really couldn't ask for anyone more capable. Arnold agrees that she's highly skilled, but he admits he simply can't stand her. The biggest reason is that she used to bully him when they were children, and he still hasn't forgotten about it. Arnold is completely shocked when Elna suddenly arrives at his office. She informs him that the regiment assigned to support him in the upcoming competition is none other than her own. The moment he hears that, Arnold immediately refuses. The last person he wants by his side is Elna. However, Elna has no intention of leaving. She boldly tells him that she's going to make sure he wins the competition and prove everyone wrong for calling him the insipid prince. Unfortunately for her, that's the exact opposite of what Arnold wants. His entire plan depends on staying unnoticed and continuing to act like a weak and useless prince. If he suddenly starts getting praised, all the attention will be focused on him, which is exactly what he's been trying to avoid from the very very beginning. Ignoring all of Arnold's complaints, Elna wastes no time getting started. She drags him outside and immediately puts him through a series of brutal training exercises and refuses to let him rest no matter how tired he is. The next morning, his back is covered with sore muscles and every part of his body aches. As Finn gently massages his back, Arnold winces in pain and asks her to be a little more careful because everything hurts. Finn can't help but feel confused. Since Arnold is secretly the legendary S-rank adventurer known as Silver, she expected him to breeze through Elna's training without any trouble. However, Sebas explains that Arnold's strength doesn't come from his body. In fact, he's actually weaker than the average person when it comes to physical ability. Almost all of his power comes from his mastery of ancient magic. Without that magic, Arnold would be nothing more than an ordinary weak man in a fight. Hearing that makes Arnold realize there may actually be an advantage to having Elna train him, since she's already known as the strongest knight in the kingdom. If he then wins the competition, everyone will simply assume it happened because of Elna's training rather than his own abilities. Finn quickly understands what Arnold is thinking. If everyone gives Elna the credit, Arnold can fight with his full strength during the competition without exposing his secret identity. Realizing this, Arnold finally becomes confident that they have a real chance of winning. Even so, Arnold still believes Leonard would make a far better ambassador extraordinary than he ever could. Sebas, however, can easily see through Arnold's excuse. He points out that Arnold isn't just thinking about Leonard's future. He's also trying to avoid taking on all the responsibilities that come with such an important position. Not long afterward, Elna returns carrying some medicine for Arnold's injuries. However, Arnold tells her that he doesn't need it because Finn has already finished treating him. Since it's the first time the two women have met, Elna and Finn politely introduce themselves and exchange greetings politely, though the introductions don't last very long because Elna immediately grabs Arnold again and drags him back outside for another round of training. This session is even tougher than the previous one, and Arnold struggles far more than before. After finally making it back inside, Arnold slowly walks through the mansion, looking like he's ready to collapse. However, instead of going straight to bed, he quietly activates his ancient magic. A hidden passage suddenly opens, revealing a secret path that leads deep beneath the estate to an underground library. Inside is his grandfather, who is still busy studying ancient magic. The old man's research into ancient magic eventually led to a terrible fate. During his studies, he ended up being taken over by a powerful demon, and as a result, his soul was trapped inside a book. Despite everything that happened to him, however, he never stopped studying magic. Even though his soul was imprisoned, he continued researching and learning everything he could about ancient magic. The demon that took over the old man's body was able to use ancient magic. Because of this, the modern royal family eventually decided that ancient magic was far too dangerous to be allowed. They completely banned its use, which is the main reason Arnold now has to keep his own knowledge of ancient magic a secret. However, Arnold's grandfather tells him not to look at his situation in such a negative way. He explains that if he hadn't been trapped inside the book, he would probably never have had the chance to study ancient magic as deeply as he did. In a strange way, being imprisoned allowed him to discover knowledge that he might never have been able to obtain otherwise. After talking about ancient magic, Arnold changes the subject and brings up Leonard's chances of becoming the next person to inherit the throne. Arnold wants to know what his grandfather thinks about Leonard's current situation and whether he has any advice that could help him during the competition. However, his grandfather doesn't seem too worried about it. He simply tells Arnold not to overthink things because the throne will naturally be drawn toward the person who is truly capable of ruling the kingdom. In his opinion, whoever has the greatest ability will eventually rise to the top. Even so, Arnold's grandfather warns him that Leonard needs to remain extremely careful. He explains that Leonard's own brothers and sisters could potentially try to assassinate him if they believe removing him from the competition would bring them closer to the throne. He then compares Leonard's situation to what happened to his older brother, Wilhelm. Arnold immediately disagrees with this idea. He explains that Wilhelm wasn't assassinated and actually died while fighting on the battlefield. However, his grandfather doesn't believe that explanation makes much sense. He points out that Wilhelm was one of the leading candidates to inherit the throne. Because of his position, the emperor would never have willingly placed him in a situation where he could easily be killed on the battlefield. This makes Arnold's grandfather suspicious about what really happened. happened. His theory is that the emperor himself may have been involved in Wilhelm's assassination. The fact that the incident was covered up so perfectly makes him believe that someone with a huge amount of power must have been behind it. Arnold eventually decides to move on from the subject and asks his grandfather another question. He wants to know if there is any kind of magic capable of controlling monsters. Arnold asks because he has noticed that monsters have been appearing around the capital far more frequently than usual. This makes him wonder if someone could secretly be controlling them and sending them into the area. His grandfather confirms that magic capable of controlling monsters does exist. However, he says there is one major problem with Arnold's theory. While controlling a few monsters is possible, there is no known magic controlling such a massive number of monsters at the same time. However, Arnold's grandfather suddenly reveals that there is actually a magical device capable of controlling monsters. He shows Arnold a strange device known as a Hamelin. The device looks harmless at first, but it has a very powerful ability. Once someone blows into it, the Hamelin releases special sound waves that can influence nearby monsters and bring them under the user's control. After seeing the device, Arnold immediately realizes what might be happening around the capital. He believes someone could be using a Hamelin to attract monsters to the area. This makes Arnold think about the upcoming Night Festival and its famous hunting competition. The Night Festival of the Hunt is about to begin, and this year's reward is incredibly important. The winner will receive the prestigious title of Ambassador Extraordinary. Because of how valuable this position is, Arnold knows that he and Leonard can't afford to lose this competition. If they want Leonard to have a real chance at inheriting the throne, they have no choice but to win. However, Arnold now has a much bigger problem to deal with. If someone is using a Hamelin to control and attract monsters, then Arnold needs to figure out how to stop it before the festival begins. He asks his grandfather what would be required to stop the Hamelin from affecting the monsters. His grandfather explains that the only way to stop it is to destroy the device itself. As long as the Hamelin remains intact, it will continue releasing sound waves that can influence the monsters and draw them toward the area. This makes Arnold think about something strange. He and his grandfather remember that monsters had already started appearing around the capital long before the Night Festival was even announced. This means the sudden appearance of monsters couldn't have been caused by the festival alone. Arnold realizes that someone must have been planning something with these monsters long before anyone knew about the competition. The Emperor, in particular, may have had another reason for attracting so many monsters to the capital. The festival might simply be a convenient excuse for whatever plan he has in mind. With all these thoughts running through his head, Arnold eventually leaves his grandfather and starts making his way back through the halls. However, as he's walking, Arnold suddenly senses something unusual. He realizes that someone has been secretly following him. Instead of continuing to walk, Arnold stops in the middle of the hallway. He turns around and calmly tells the person hiding behind him to come out and reveal himself. A mercenary eventually steps out from the shadows. He immediately pulls out a knife, making his intentions clear. However, the man quickly explains that he has no intention of killing Arnold. His goal is much simpler. He has been hired to make sure Arnold doesn't participate in the upcoming Night Festival. The man seems confident that stopping a supposedly weak prince like Arnold shouldn't be difficult. After all, everyone knows Arnold as the insipid prince, someone who is believed to have almost no talent or ability. But the moment the mercenary tries to make his move, Arnold completely catches him off guard. Without even breaking a sweat, Arnold activates his magic and creates a powerful barrier around the mercenary. The barrier instantly traps him in place, preventing him from moving or escaping. The man is completely stunned. He never expected Arnold to possess this kind of power. This moment makes the bandit realize that the man everyone calls the insipid prince might not be as insipid as they think. The bandit, realizing that Arnold has caught him, suddenly calls out to the rest of his companions and orders them to attack. However, before they can do anything, Sebas suddenly walks into the room. He calmly informs Arnold that there's no need to worry because he has already taken care of the other bandits. With the rest of the group defeated, Arnold turns his attention back to the mercenary in front of him. He decides to use a mind torture spell on him, forcing the man to reveal the truth about who sent him. Under the effects of the spell, the mercenary finally confesses that Xandra was the one who hired him to stop Arnold from participating in the Night Festival. Arnold isn't happy to hear that Xandra was behind the attack. The fact that she was willing to have him assassinated makes him realize that she's clearly a dangerous enemy. However, the timing of the attack also makes Arnold question whether Xandra is really responsible for the mysterious monster attacks happening around the capital. After all, if Xandra had just tried to have Arnold killed, then it seems unlikely that she would also be secretly controlling the monsters. Arnold begins to think that someone else must be behind the strange events. Based on everything he's learned so far, he believes the real culprit could either be Gordon or Eric. With that thought in mind, Arnold walks away and tells Sebas to take the captured assassin and lock him up somewhere secure. However, just as Arnold is about to leave, Sebas tells him that the location for the upcoming night festival has finally been announced. This year's event will be held in Kiel, a region located in the eastern part of the empire. The news means that Arnold and the others now know exactly where they'll need to go for the competition. With the festival only one day away, the citizens of Kiel are already extremely excited. The entire city is filled with people looking forward to the event, and everyone is eagerly waiting for the next day to arrive. Meanwhile, Arnold decides to give Finn a special gift before the festival begins. He gives her a pair of magical glasses that will help hide her true identity. With the glasses on, other people won't be able to easily recognize who she really is, allowing her to move around without attracting unwanted attention. Later on, Arnold and Finn spend some time exploring the city together. However, they end up visiting almost every cake shop they can find and trying all kinds of different cakes. Eventually, the two of them are sitting around with completely stuffed stomachs. Finn, however, isn't exactly happy about this. Even though she's already full, she still wants to visit more cake shops and try even more desserts. Arnold points out that there's no way she can keep eating when she's already this full. Instead, he suggests that they go for a walk around the city so she can move around and hopefully work up an appetite again. But while they're walking, Arnold and Finn suddenly spot someone familiar. It's Leonard. Arnold remembers that Leonard is currently in Kiel on official business with the knights. As Leonard approaches them, the citizens nearby immediately begin comparing the two brothers. Unfortunately for Arnold, the comparisons aren't exactly flattering. The citizens start talking about how Leonard is much more handsome and looks much stronger than Arnold. He doesn't pay much attention to their comments and simply asks Leonard why he's doing in town. Leonard explains that there have been several thefts happening throughout the city recently. Because of this, he's been sent there to investigate the situation and find out who's responsible. With the night festival only one day away, Arnold realizes that there may be more going on in Kiel than just the upcoming competition. While Arnold and Leonard continue their conversation, a group of white rodents suddenly scurry up into the girls' dresses, causing them to get a little excited. Once the commotion dies down, Leonard identifies them as Blets. So Arnold explains that those were no ordinary rats, and that whoever is behind the thefts has been using them as tools to steal. Finn realizes immediately that he's right when she reaches up and notices the expensive hair tie the Emperor gave her is gone. Leonard heads off with Marie, vowing to help track down the missing piece, and Finn apologizes to Arnold for dragging him into the mess. Arnold tells her not to worry about it, admitting that he actually feels less on edge around her than he usually does around most people. The two of them slip into an alley to start searching, though Arnold is less interested in finding the rats themselves and more focused on whoever is giving them their orders. What he can't figure out is how the Blets are being directed to bring stolen goods back to a specific location. He pokes around until he finds a fauna stone, a magic stone capable of storing and replaying sounds at set intervals, and the pieces fall into place. The masterminds have been using the stones as signals to guide the Blets home. With that figured out, Arnold and Finn start tracking down each stone one by one, and the trail leads them steadily westward until one of the Blets appears right in front of them. They follow it quietly until it scales a fence and disappears over the other side. That's the hideout. Arnold disguises himself as Leonard and tips off a group of knights nearby, which conveniently gives Leonard another opportunity to look good in front of people. The thieves are rounded up shortly after, and Arnold slips into the cabin in his Leonard disguise to retrieve Finn's hairpiece. The knights on the inside immediately block him, explaining that nothing from the stolen goods can be touched until the investigators arrive. But the moment Finn removes her glasses, they recognize her on the spot and stand aside without another word, letting Arnold place the hairpiece back where it belongs. On his way out, Arnold walks over to the knights and suggests, in the most reasonable tone he can manage, that it would be in everyone's best interest to keep this particular visit quiet. If word got out that something had gone missing in the first place, the consequences would fall squarely on them. The knights agree without much resistance, and Arnold seals the arrangement with a pouch of money for drinks. The two of them walk back toward home, and after a while Finn stops and tells Arnold how genuinely proud she is of everything he's accomplishing. Despite everyone writing him off as the insipid prince, she says she knows exactly how capable he really is. That catches Arnold slightly off guard, and before either of them can say much more, they both notice Elna across the way enthusiastically beating up some citizens who had apparently been fighting in the town square. Arnold takes one look at the situation, decides he wants absolutely no part of it, and quietly steers Finn in the opposite direction, suggesting they go check out the shops they didn't have time to visit earlier. By the time night falls, Finn is well and truly full. The scene then cuts to two hooded figures meeting with one of Arnold's siblings in secret, handing over the Hamelin and explaining that it's a device capable of controlling monsters. They remind him of the arrangement. He's to protect the Emperor from harm, win the Knights' Festival hunt, and position himself as the hero of the event, while they receive the reward that was agreed upon in return. When the day of the hunt arrives, all participants are gathered and Franz announces that everyone will be fitted with a magical bracelet, serving two purposes: tracking their location and preventing any fraud. Elna asks what he means by fraud, and Franz clarifies that participants are not permitted to go out of their way to seek out monsters on their own. If anyone strays beyond a 1-kilometer radius from the regiment leader, they're immediately disqualified. Arnold is quietly annoyed when he hears this, since it means slipping away from Elna to find somewhere peaceful to nap is no longer an option. Krista and Rupert won't be participating in the hunt itself, and therefore won't be bound by the distance restriction, running their operations remotely from the lodging instead. Franz tells everyone to go and get ready. On his way out, Krista walks up to Arnold and tells him the people around her have been making her uncomfortable. Arnold asks if she's had another vision of the future, and she confirms it, telling him a large number of monsters are heading toward the town. He gives her a reassuring pat on the head and thanks her for the warning. A short while later, Krista is introduced to Finn, and she already knows exactly who she is since Finn is widely considered the most beautiful girl in the entire nation. Arnold asks Finn to keep Krista company while he's away, but Krista isn't comfortable being left with someone she's only just met. That reservation evaporates the moment Finn offers her a taste of the snacks she's carrying, and within moments Krista has decided they're going to be friends. Later that day, the Emperor addresses the gathered citizens, acknowledging that the recent surge in monster activity is something he takes personal responsibility for, and explaining that the Knights' Festival is his way of making amends. The primary objective is to suppress the heaviest monster concentrations in the eastern regions. With that said, he officially declares the festival open, and the princes and princesses move out. A few hours into the competition, Franz runs a quick assessment of how each unit is performing and updates the Emperor. Most are making modest progress, but one unit has pulled so far ahead of the rest that the Emperor does a double take when he sees whose name is attached to it. It's Arnold's. The scene shifts to Arnold watching with quiet amazement as Elna single-handedly dismantles over 30 rank bloodhounds without breaking much of a sweat. He finds the whole thing genuinely entertaining, mostly because at this pace he might actually get his nap after all. Once the last one goes down, Elna suggests they push on to the next group immediately, but Arnold shuts that down and tells her they should wrap it up for the day. It's only the first day of the festival, and burning themselves out early by going too hard too soon would be a mistake they'd regret by day 3. They spend the night in a nearby town. While Arnold is enjoying a drink, Elna suddenly walks in and suggests they do some training after dinner. The moment Arnold hears the word training, he shrinks back in fear. Elna sits down and says she thought he would finally start taking life more seriously instead of letting everyone make fun of him, but Arnold says he's perfectly happy being known as the insipid prince. Hearing people call Arnold the insipid prince hurts Elna more than she lets on. She tells him to take the festival seriously because doing well would earn him more respect. She believes Arnold refuses to try because the worse his reputation becomes, the better Leonard's looks. But Arnold insists he's fine the way he is and tells Elna to stay away from him once the festival is over. Arnold explains that someone recently tried to assassinate him. Just having Elna by his side makes him look like a serious candidate for the position of ambassador extraordinary. That also makes him a threat to his brothers and sisters who want the same title. Arnold worries that Elna could also become a target, so he tells her to be careful. Feeling guilty, Elna apologizes because she had no idea she was putting him in danger. Arnold accepts her apology and says he'll actually put some effort into the festival. Hearing that makes Elna smile. On the third day of the festival hunt, Elna is shocked to learn that Prince Carlos is in first place. One of the knights guesses Carlos must have defeated several triple a rank monsters to earn that many points. Elna immediately doubts that. She knows Carlos was with the 7th Regiment, and they are nowhere near strong enough to pull off something like that. Arnold quietly listens to the conversation and realizes Carlos is the one using the Hamelin. Remembering Krista's warning, he concludes that something terrible is about to happen. A moment later, Elna places her ear against the ground and hears a huge stampede. The monsters in the east are all running away because someone has been hunting them down. Everyone wonders where the monsters are heading, but Arnold answers without hesitation. They're heading straight for Kiel. He asks if the soldiers stationed at Kiel can stop the monsters, but Elna says they probably can't. Arnold then asks Elna if she would still go protect Kiel even if it meant giving her life. Elna answers without hesitation. Protecting the Emperor and the people is her duty, and she isn't afraid of dying. The other knights also declare they are ready to risk their lives. Before anyone leaves, Arnold stops them. He says he refuses to send anyone who can't promise they will survive. The knights immediately kneel and swear they will come back alive. Elna says they should leave at once, but Arnold says he would only slow them down. He then strikes his magical tracking bracelet with his sword and breaks it. Pretending it was an accident, he says he'll just head to a bar and relax instead. Elna asks why he destroyed the bracelet when they still had a chance to win the festival. Arnold simply tells her to report to the Emperor that he broke it by accident. He then calls out to every knight and asks them to save the people of Kiel and protect the Emperor. His words fire everyone up, and Elna and the knights swear they will defend Kiel and the Emperor no matter what. The moment the knights leave, Arnold immediately transforms into silver and teleports away to another location. Meanwhile, the Emperor himself is standing at the gates of Kiel, personally leading the defense as he fights to stop the monsters from breaking through. Before long, the situation gets even worse when one of the knights beside him reports that a second wave of monsters is approaching. Not only are more monsters coming, but the report says there are nearly 3,000 of them heading straight for the city. Hearing that number makes the knights tremble with fear. They know just how dangerous another wave like that will be. However, the Emperor refuses to let their spirits fall. He tells every soldier not to lose heart because with the number of troops they currently have, it simply means each soldier only has to deal with one monster. Just then, the Emperor looks up into the sky and notices two young men floating high above the battlefield. Wondering who they are, he asks them to identify themselves. The pair introduce themselves as Sam and Dean. The Emperor immediately recognizes those names because he has heard of them before. They were both banished by their fellow vampires, and the Adventurers Guild even placed an S-rank bounty on their heads. Sam and Dean don't deny any of it. Instead, they admit that everything the Emperor heard is true. Even though all of that happened a very long time ago, they still haven't forgotten the humiliation they suffered back then. The Emperor finds that grudge surprisingly persistent, especially since the Emperor responsible for those events has already been dead for many years. But Sam and Dean couldn't care less. To them, human lives are far too short compared to the lives of vampires. Since they couldn't get revenge on the Emperor who wronged them, they decided to take revenge on his descendants and destroy everything that belongs to his bloodline instead. Without wasting another second, Dean begins gathering a massive ball of energy in his hand. The attack continues growing stronger as he prepares to erase everyone below in a single blast. The Emperor watches the attack coming straight toward him and quietly accepts that this may be the end, but at the very last second, Elna suddenly appears in front of him and blocks the attack with her sword. The Emperor is shocked to see Elna standing there because she was supposed to be looking after Arnold during the festival. He quickly learns that Arnold was the one who ordered her to come and protect Kiel. Hearing that honestly makes the Emperor happy because for the first time, he feels like Arnold is finally beginning to grow into a responsible person. person. The Emperor also says he's looking forward to seeing how much Elna has improved over the years. Elna confidently replies that he won't be disappointed as she draws the legendary sword of Amsberg. The moment Sam sees the sword, he immediately laughs and mocks both the weapon and its owner, Dean. However, quickly warns Sam not to get careless. The Amsberg family are famous heroes, and none of them should ever be treated like ordinary humans. Sam takes a closer look at Elna and suddenly recognizes her as the knight assigned to protect Arnold, the prince everyone calls the insipid prince. The moment Sam insults Arnold, Elna completely loses her patience. She immediately rushes forward, closes the distance in an instant, and delivers a powerful slash that sends Sam flying backward. Dean isn't surprised by what he just witnessed. As the greatest prodigy of the Amsberg family, Elna's strength is exactly what he expected. Without giving her any time to rest, Dean joins the fight, and the two vampires begin attacking her together from different directions. Even while fighting both of them at the same time, Elna manages to hold her ground and refuses to give either of them an opening. Just then, Carlos arrives on horseback with the knights under his command. Determined to protect his father, Carlos charges straight into the battlefield, hoping this battle will finally prove that he deserves to become the next ambassador extraordinary. However, before he can even make a real move, one powerful shadow attack suddenly strikes him and knocks him clean off his horse. Carlos asks Sam what's going on because this wasn't part of the plan they agreed on. But Sam simply laughs and tells him there was never any plan to begin with. The whole time, Carlos was nothing more than a pawn being used for their own goals. Realizing he had been tricked from the very beginning, Carlos is left completely stunned. Before Sam can say anything else, Dean calls out to him and tells him to stay focused because Elna is already charging toward them again. Sam quickly turns his attention back to the battle as Elna closes the distance with another powerful attack. Meanwhile, Silver arrives to meet Prince Leonard and tells him he's there to offer his support. However, he advises Leonard not to head straight to Kiel. Leonard immediately refuses because there are countless people waiting for help there, and he can't just stand by while they're in danger. As far as he's concerned, protecting the people is more important than anything else. Silver says he understands exactly how Leonard feels, but then he suggests another option instead. Rather than rushing to Kiel himself, he hints that Leonard should make use of the knights from the neighboring domains. One of the knights immediately objects, pointing out that even if Leonard is a prince, ordering another lord's knights would be overstepping his authority. Silver admits that the idea probably sounds impossible at first. Still, he says his specialty has always been turning impossible things into reality. In the end, the only thing that matters is whether Leonard has the courage to make that decision. After hearing those words, Leonard doesn't hesitate for even a second. He says he's willing to accept every bit of responsibility if it means he can save the people under his protection. He asks Silver how they're actually going to make something like that happen. Silver smiles and says the plan is actually very simple. He'll create a transportation portal, and Leonard will stand in front of it to give a speech. Every knight who comes through will hear his orders, allowing him to guide the confused soldiers and tell them exactly where they need to go. Silver notices the look on Leonard's face and asks if he isn't confident that he can pull this off. Leonard honestly admits that he isn't confident at all. Even so, he's still willing to do everything he can if it means saving more lives. With that settled, Silver opens the transportation portal and tells Leonard and the others to follow him. Leonard steps through the portal and is shocked when he arrives at Kiel in an instant. Before anyone can say another word, Silver casts alertness magic on Leonard, allowing his voice to carry across the entire area so everyone nearby can hear him clearly. With everything ready, Leonard begins his speech. He calls upon the knights from every neighboring domain and asks for their help in defending Kiel. He tells them they don't need permission from their lords because he is willing to accept all of the responsibility himself if anyone questions their actions later. A soldier named Hans is the first to step through the portal. He immediately kneels before Leonard and says it is an honor to fight under his command. When Leonard looks behind Hans, he's left speechless. An entire army of soldiers is pouring through the portal one after another. After taking a quick look, he estimates that nearly 3,000 soldiers have answered his call. Leonard sincerely thanks Silver for making all of this possible. However, Silver tells him it's still too early to celebrate. They can save their thanks until after Kiel has been protected. With those final words, Silver falls back through the transportation portal, while Leonard turns to his own knights and orders everyone to prepare for battle. At the same time, Elna is still fighting against Sam and Dean, going back and forth with the vampire brothers. Inside the mansion, Krista becomes worried that even more monsters are going to swarm them. She knows they need to get the Hamelin away from the enemy, but Finn just hugs her and promises that she will be the one to get it. Krista worries about how dangerous that could be, but Finn tells her not to worry because she has always been blessed with incredible luck. Krista is relieved to hear that, and then tells Elna that the Hamelin is going to fall somewhere in the middle of the battlefield. Back on the battlefield, Dean gets ready to blow the Hamelin, but Elna reacts quickly and knocks it out of his hands before he can do anything. At that exact moment, just as Krista predicted, the Hamelin suddenly falls from the sky toward the middle of town. Finn manages to catch it before it hits the ground. She quickly throws it toward Elna, who easily catches it. However, Dean is furious that Finn has interfered with their plans. He immediately fires an energy attack at her. The attack destroys the area around Finn and sends her falling toward the ground. While she is still falling, Dean fires another energy blast directly at her. Finn realizes that she has no way to escape and accepts that she is about to die. But just before the attack can hit her, Silver suddenly appears and saves her. He catches Finn and gently lowers her back to the ground. He then tells her that what she just did was incredibly reckless. Finn apologizes, but Silver also admits that she did a good job getting the Hamelin. After saving her, Silver takes off into the air and introduces himself to Sam and Dean. The vampire brothers are immediately annoyed that Silver has gotten in their way. However, they quickly realize that if they can defeat both Silver and Elna, then they will have a clear path to victory. Elna is not convinced. She points out that Sam and Dean were barely able to handle her on their own, so she doubts the two of them can actually win. Silver then tells Elna to stay out of the fight because he intends to take down both Sam and Dean by himself. However, Elna refuses because she is enjoying the battle and wants to join in on the fun. Dean then reminds Silver that the Emperor is about to fight a very dangerous battle and suggests that Silver should be protecting him instead. Silver calmly responds that his duty is to protect the people, not the nation itself. He explains that protecting the Empire is the responsibility of the knights and nobles. He does not want to interfere with their duties or steal their jobs. Just then, Leonard arrives with an entire army of knights. They have come to intercept the second wave of monsters before they can reach the town. The Emperor and his men are surprised by their arrival, but they quickly prepare to join the fight and support them. Seeing the situation on the battlefield being handled, Silver tells Sam and Dean that they no longer need to worry about the incoming monsters because the knights have taken care of them. Elna then suggests that she take Sam while Silver deals with Dean. Silver agrees to the plan, and the two immediately split up. Elna begins fighting Sam and manages to hold her own against him. However, Silver seems to be having a much harder time against Dean. Dean lands a powerful attack that sends Silver crashing into the ground. Seeing this, Dean becomes more confident. He had expected Silver to be extremely powerful, but now he starts thinking that Silver is not nearly as strong as he originally believed. Meanwhile, Elna starts mocking Silver from the middle of her fight with Sam. She reminds him that Sam and Dean are not actually that strong and even gets the feeling he might be fighting badly on purpose just so he can look impressive later. It turns out Elna was right about Silver holding back. Silver suddenly activates a powerful cleric field that heals every human within a 100-mile radius. Across the battlefield, the soldiers and wounded are shocked when they suddenly notice their injuries closing and their wounds healing. Dean is stunned that Silver was able to maintain such a powerful healing field while fighting them at the same time. Silver admits that this is not the only trick he has left. He then activates his ancient curse barrier technique, which creates powerful curse chains that immediately wrap around both Sam and Dean. The chains completely bind the vampire twins, leaving them unable to move. Back on the battlefield, the soldiers are shocked to see that the curse chains have spread across the area and are also binding the monsters. Thousands of monsters are suddenly trapped by the same chains, completely stopping their advance. Silver then floats towards Sam and Dean and tells them that it is now time for their punishment. The vampire twins can both tell from his expression that the battle is already over for them. However, the curse chains suddenly begin moving toward Elna as well. Silver quickly notices this and dismantles the chains before they can touch her. Elna immediately scolds him and asks why his technique was trying to chain up an ally. Silver calmly explains that he simply dislikes her so much that the chains apparently mistook her for an enemy. After dealing with that problem, Silver turns his attention back to the vampire twins. He reminds them that as vampires, they are not much of a threat without their magical abilities. Since the curse chains are constantly draining their magic, they have effectively become powerless. Silver then asks them if they have any final words. Dean takes the opportunity to ask Silver why he is so determined to kill them. He argues that Silver would be better off treating this like a guild request and simply hunting them as part of an official job. Silver rejects that idea. He explains that as an adventurer, his duty does not depend on whether he is working for the guild or not. He believes he has a responsibility to protect the entire continent from dangerous monsters. Elna then joins the conversation and suggests that they stop wasting time and finish the battle. However, Silver immediately realizes that she is preparing to summon her holy sword. He warns her not to use it because its power could destroy the entire town. Elna assures him that she can control the sword's power and will make sure the damage is limited. She also reminds Silver that as a noble, it is her responsibility to eliminate anything that threatens the Empire. Just then, the third wave of monsters begins approaching the battlefield. Elna summons her holy sword, and Silver tells her that she can have Sam. Silver then prepares to fight Dean and activates his ultimate technique, Infinity Darkness. The Emperor and his troops watch in shock as both Silver and Elna prepare their devastating attacks. The sheer amount of power they are releasing is enough to make the Emperor realize that the battlefield is no longer safe. He immediately orders everyone to retreat. Silver and Elna unleash their attacks at the same time. Their combined power completely wipes out the remaining enemies in a single devastating blast. After everything is over, the Emperor approaches Silver and thanks him for his help. He praises Silver for everything he did to protect the Empire and its people. Silver is preparing to leave when Elna suddenly calls him back. She sincerely thanks him for everything he has done, especially for saving Finn when she was falling to her death. Elna explains that Finn is very important to Arnold, making Silver understand why her rescue mattered so much. Silver refers to Arnold as the insipid prince. Elna immediately becomes angry and places her holy sword against Silver's throat. She warns him never to speak about Arnold that way again. Silver quickly apologizes, and Elna lowers her sword. Silver then leaves by stepping through his transit portal. 3 days later, the Emperor sits in front of all his children with Franz standing beside him. Franz explains that Prince Carlos woke up that morning and confessed his connection to Sam and Dean. He reveals that Carlos had been using the Hamelin to control monsters because he wanted to gain an advantage during the festival hunt and come out on top. The other royals call Carlos an idiot for ever thinking that plan was a good idea. However, they begin wondering whether the entire incident was really Carlos's plan from the beginning. The Emperor explains that Carlos was manipulated by the vampires, but that does not completely excuse him. Even if he was being controlled, he still put the entire empire in danger simply because he wanted to profit from the festival hunt. The Emperor makes it clear that this is something that cannot simply be ignored. However, Eric suddenly kneels before the Emperor and asks him to forgive Carlos. Gordon and Xandra also agree with him. They admit that what Carlos did was incredibly foolish, but he is still their brother, and they do not want to see him completely destroyed because of his mistake. The Emperor asks Leonard what he thinks about the situation, and Leonard steps forward and says that Carlos cannot simply go unpunished for an act like that, leaving everyone shocked. Leonard then tells the Emperor not to be biased just because Carlos is his son. He explains that punishing his own son would also show the people that the Emperor is truly fair and willing to enforce the rules, even against his own family. The Emperor starts to suspect that this idea came from Arnold, but Arnold quickly denies having anything to do with it. The Emperor then makes his judgment. He decides to spare Carlos, but makes it clear that he is not going to ignore Leonard's actions. He asks Leonard to step forward, and after Leonard gets down on one knee, the Emperor presents him with a massive sword and officially announces him as the winner of the Night Hunt Festival. Leonard accepts the sword with honor, but then asks the Emperor if he can make one request. He asks the Emperor to generously reward the knights who gathered together and fought against the monsters. Before the Emperor can respond, Franz steps in and tells Leonard that he is already working on rewarding the knights for their efforts. The Emperor then points out that since both Carlos and Arnold have been disqualified, the runners-up are now Leonard and Gordon. However, Leonard has accomplished far more by successfully leading the the knights, and he is also extremely popular in the eastern region. Because of this, the emperor decides that declaring Leonard an ambassador extraordinary would help prevent any possible discontent among the people. Gordon reluctantly agrees with the emperor's decision. Elna then steps forward and asks the emperor to reconsider Arnold's disqualification, which immediately catches Arnold off guard. She explains that Arnold deliberately deployed his knights to assist Kiel, knowing full well that doing so would cause him to be disqualified. Because of that, she believes Arnold deserves at least some form of recognition for his actions. The emperor hears her explanation and remembers that Arnold had claimed he broke his bracelet by mistake. He points out that if Arnold had deliberately broken the bracelet so he could deploy his knights, then there would have been a reason to consider his actions differently. But for now, the official winner remains Leonard. Arnold hears this and lets out a sigh of relief, realizing that he has escaped a harsher punishment. However, the emperor then admits that without Arnold's mistake and his decision to send the knights to help Kiel, they might not all be standing there today. So, instead of simply ignoring Arnold's actions, the emperor decides to reward him as well. He officially appoints Arnold as the Lieutenant Ambassador Extraordinary, making him Leonard's assistant. Arnold clearly does not want the position and reminds the emperor of how incompetent he is, but the emperor tells him that it is finally time for him to prove what he is capable of, and that his decision is final. Elna is happy for Arnold, but Arnold can only sigh in defeat, knowing there is nothing he can do about it. Later, Arnold sits alone in his room and realizes that all his plans to stay low-key and avoid attention have now been completely ruined. Just then, Finn comes in and brings him some tea. Arnold takes a sip, but immediately notices that it tastes different from his usual tea. Finn explains that she figured he must be exhausted, so she used ingredients that have revitalizing properties to help him recover. Arnold takes another sip and thanks Finn for everything she has done, but Finn insists that she should be the one thanking him because he was the one who saved her life. After that, Finn pours him another cup of tea and asks what happened to the Hamelin. Arnold explains that it has now been tightly sealed away inside the Adventurers Guild. However, Arnold still cannot stop wondering about the vampires. He begins thinking about whether those vampires were actually working for someone else, and if there was a bigger reason behind their actions. Before he can think about it any further, Arnold suddenly falls asleep. Finn notices this and gently covers him with a blanket. Even though Arnold is already asleep, she starts remembering the first day she gave him the ornament. It was also the day of their first date. She remembers how simply talking to Arnold had been enough to make her feel calm and comfortable, and ever since that day, she has continued to look up to him. As Finn watches Arnold peacefully sleeping, she slowly becomes emotional. She reaches out and gently touches his hand before leaning closer, intending to give him a kiss. However, she suddenly panics at the last moment and stops herself. Instead, she simply picks up Arnold's tea and takes a sip from it. She immediately realizes that this technically counts as an indirect kiss, but later calms down and realizes that an indirect kiss is not that bad after all. That was episode 6. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.